What's up, duelists? It's your boy back again with another Term 1 Summon Lila Classic. If you guys have liked the content this last week or so, go ahead and like and subscribe. I've been showcasing a lot of cool decks. Today I've got 3 brand new replays with this brand new deck. I've already done a video with a similar deck for members. Of course, if you want to become a member, $2.99 a month goes a long way in supporting the channel. And then if you want to play in any Edison tournaments, go ahead and join the two Discords in the description below. I think there's one coming up on February 4th and 5th. So if you guys want to partake in a tournament with pretty high stakes and a lot of players, Deck Devastators, February 4th and 5th in the EdisonFormat.com Discord. Go ahead and check that out. Okay, so this is a deck that a lot of people were skeptical of. They're like, why are you playing Lilas? Why are you playing this Sky Blaster card? Isn't this kind of a gimmick? And yeah, it kind of is, but the power level is really, really high when it goes off. I've made a few changes since I last showed this build. If you are a member and you've seen the previous one, I've added a second Magical Stone. Magical Stone is semi-limited, but we are playing the maximum copies because you do really, really have to see Rekindling for this deck to ever work. And then I've also gone up to 3 Raikou and added a Lumina. I've cut the Hamster because I'm over it, and I've cut a few other cards as well. I think I cut Giant Trunade, if I remember correctly. Yeah. The sideboard, pretty big changes. We're actually not sideboarding DD Crow. I think DD Crow is a decent card, but it's pretty low impact, and I'm looking for high impact back row. This deck cannot really afford to side in and out too much. You kind of need your Lightsworns to mill, and then your Rekindling stuff to stay in the main. You can very, very little side out on those, pretty much. The most I've done is like side out Lila, Raikou, maybe Lumina, but even that becomes a little bit inconsistent because you really do need to mill. So we just have high impact back row cards. We've got double Consecrated for Blackwings. You can side out a lot of your dark monsters and bring in the Consecrated against Blackwings because stuff like Summoner Monk, that's not really how you're winning against that deck, realistically. You can just bring in the Consecrated and try to set up Stardust Consecrated, and that's a pretty easy route to victory. We've got Soul Release. This is good for Lightsworns and Frogs and stuff. You can reuse it if you absolutely have to with Magical Stone, so just having the one is fine. You can also mill it and then grab it back, which is cool. We have Trunade, which comes in only against Glads, pretty much, or against decks that set 5 or whatever. We've got 2 Thunder Kings. These cards are really good because we do have the Honest in the main. I'm going to talk about the Honest here in a second, but we'll get back to that. We got double Cyber Dragon, that's for machines. Mask of Restrict, obviously for frogs or for Lone Fire style decks. We've got double Compulsory, this is just to deal with synchro decks, also pretty good against zombies. We've got a Starlight Road, that also helps us against Blackwings, and then we've got Trap Dust Shoot, which we can bring in when we are going first. So, the way this deck works is you want to summon either Lila or Lumina turn 1, and then you want to protect it, or Card Trooper, I guess. So you have 5 starters, 6 if you count Charge as a starter, and then you want to mill at least 6 cards or even more with each of those, and you want to stack your millers. Once you have like a graveyard full of Flamvell monsters, you just want to spam Rekindling and try to OTK, and that's pretty much the plan. This isn't trying to grind out opponents. This isn't a deck that's going to go for card advantage. You're really just going for a big OTK turn. Lila on the first turn of the game is really busted, especially if you have protection. It basically says your opponent has to run it over or they can't set a back row that's not chainable. They're just going to bleed card advantage that way. Lila is kind of like an MST that also mills 3 cards. So it's like a 2-for-1 for you in this deck a lot of the time because you end up milling one of these guys or you mill a Rekindling that you can get back with Magical Stone. Magical Stone is a little bit of a card disadvantage, if I do say so myself, but you have 8 cards that are pretty decent to discard. The Flamvells, obviously, and then the Plague and the Necrogardna. And then on top of that, if you discard 2 Flamvells, or even 1 Flamvell, and then just Rekindling back a bunch of monsters, that minus is kind of mitigated by the fact that you're just winning the game that turn. It is worse in sideboard situations when your opponent has DD Crow, especially if they've seen it in game 1, but it is important to have them just so you can guarantee seeing Rekindling, because when you are blind milling, you're not going to have a guarantee that you're going to draw Rekindling. You could maybe play Gold Sarks in these slots, but Gold Sark it's a little bit iffy, and it's worse top deck later in the game, and it also doesn't empty your hand of Flamvells, which Magical Stone can actually do. You can have games where you have no Flamvells in your grave, and then you have like a Fire Dog and a Magician, or you have double Magician and Sky Blaster or something like that, and you Magical Stone, pitch a couple, get back Rekindling, and then OTK from there. Sky Blaster is kind of like an OTK combo piece. It's a quick OTK combo piece. Unlike Gravekeeper Spy, you can summon it, and you just get the token straight up. You don't have to wait a full turn for the flip effect to resolve. It also applies a lot of pressure. If I summon Lila, and then I have a back row, Deep Prism, Bottomless, Honest, whatever, to deal with my opponent's normal summon. Then on my turn, I summon Phantom Skyblaster. It's 3,800 damage because it's like a 2,100 normal summon because you get 2 tokens. And then it's just really hard for the opponent to come back. You have 4 bodies in play. If you draw one of your tuners, it's amazing. It's really good with Plague. It's a double 6-star with Plague. It's really good with like, I don't know. It's just really good in this type of deck. So you guys will see in the replays why it's so good. I got 3 replays for you guys. Let's go ahead and get right into them. The first one is against Swap Froggy. So this is a cool match because Swap Froggy is playing Monster Mash. So it can kind of showcase the full potential of this deck when it's not playing into back row. This is the first match I play with this deck, or with this specific list. So keep in mind, these 3 matches are the first 3 matches I play with this list. I make a couple misplays. I'll point them out. You guys will see them. But the point is to showcase the deck. You guys will see what I'm talking about. Okay. Again, we have Lila Honest. This is like the best opening you can have in this deck. So I just summon Lila and phase mill 3. And I hit Plague and Flamvell Magician, which is awesome. You have 8 good mills in this list. You have the 3 Fire Dog, 3 Flamvell Magician, and then you have Plague Necrogardener. So pretty frequently, you're going to mill at least 1 good card out of 3. Pretty frequently. Not all the time, but it's like a good percentage of the time. I ran the numbers as like 60-70% of the time you mill a good card, which is pretty good. That's pretty good. And then if you can keep it around for another turn, then it's even better. They just set a monster and pass, but this is the strength of Lila. Let's say they were playing back row, right? Are they going to set a back row here? What are they going to do? Are they going to attack my Lila? I'll just Honest. And then they lose the tempo and they can't set back row. So it's like Cold Wave. And then on my turn, I can just apply even more pressure. I can summon another Miller. I can set up for a bigger push, OTK push. I can summon Skyblaster, deal 3,800, etc. So like you guys see the strength of just like open Lila with Honest in hand. That's kind of the point of the deck. Okay, normal summon Flamvell Fire Dog, attack. It ends up being Magical Merchant, which is pretty good for them here because it mills not only 1 Dandelion, but 2 Dandelions, as well as a Level Eater and Plague Spreader as well. Plus Dark Simorgh, which kind of has some applications in the graveyard. They get Treacherous Trap Hole off of this. They shuffle their deck. I tell them that they have to put the Merchant back because in tournament, you would have to put the Merchant back on top of your deck, basically. So it would just be like a redo sort of thing, like an error. 4 tokens are summoned. I get to summon a Flamvell Magician from my deck, and I'm looking pretty good to win this game. Like the next turn, I'm just going to be able to Rekindling for 1,000,000. This Lila's going to stick around for sure because I have Honest to back it up. I can at least make an 8-star this turn and make it really hard for them to OTK me after, you know, like, let's say they have a way to set up a Dark Armed, like with Phantom of Chaos or something. I can make a Stardust here. So they won't be able to OTK me through the battle phase because I have Lila Honest holding it down from battle, and then I'll have Stardust holding it down from destruction effects. They'd have to do something really weird, like summon Chaos Sorcerer from their graveyard somehow, like Monster Reincarnation, Chaos Sorcerer, and then special that, and then actually banish the Lila, not the Stardust, to get an OTK push against me. And it's also going to be really hard for them to do with these 4 tokens kind of clogging up their board. I am going to kill 2 of the tokens because I need to kill them eventually, so I might as well. Plus, it limits their synchro options on the next turn, makes it harder for them to make Bionic with this Plague Spreader here. And then main phase 2, I make Stardust. Now, they could go for Bionic if they have a 4-star, which they do end up having. They have Dark Grepher. But if they go for Bionic, it's pretty difficult for them to kill, I believe. I think they have to empty their whole hand. No, wait. They have to stack 1 for Plague. Then they have to pitch 2 for Bionic. They have a chance to kill. Now that I'm seeing that they have Gallus in their hand, they have a chance to kill. But then they also have to consider Gores, right? So they have to empty their whole hand, and then they would have to empty their whole hand to bring out Simorgh, Bionic, and Armed Wing, and Level Eater. And I think that's game. Let me run the math. No, it's actually only 7,900. I'm sure there's a way they could piece together lethal here, but it would take their whole hand to summon Simorgh and use Bionic to bounce both my cards. So it'd be really hard for them to actually kill here. It's possible, it's just really hard. They use Grepher, they set up the whatever guy. They go for a value play here with Yugioh Guardian, which isn't a bad play. It's actually like not bad here. They make Armed Wing 2 to try and run over the Lila. They attack the Stardust. They do get to steal the Stardust, ask if they want it. They do. They attack the Lila, and I do protect it with the Honest. And the reason I protect it is because I know they have Treacherous Trap Hole. There's some consideration to like just letting Lila die here, but I think it's pretty correct to just use Honest and leave a body in play at least for our Rekindling play. They set a back row, and then main phase 1, I can use Lila to pop their back row. They go ahead and chain Treacherous, popping a token and the Lila, and we just have game because we can Rekindling out Fire Dog plus double Magician. We can Synchro 8 into Colossal. We can summon Skyblaster, get 2 tokens, Synchro 8 again, make Dark End, stack for Plague, make Bionic, and then pitch our last 2 cards, bouncing Yugioh and Stardust, attack over the token with Sky Blaster, and this plays through Gore's Trag because we have Dark End that we haven't activated yet. So this is actually just a really, really good game shot, and it's impossible for the opponent to come back. You guys see the power of Phantom Sky Blaster, get 2 tokens. It just gives you a bunch of non-tuner material that you can use to make multiple synchro monsters, flood the board, go for big OTK pushes out of nowhere, and that's the idea. This game we opened up with Lila. You do kind of have to leave Lilas in, even against decks that don't play a lot of back row, just because it is your starter. It's a little bit unfortunate, but it could be worse. It could be worse, because at worst it's a 4-star monster that you can synchro off with. Opponent starts off with just set monster pass. We have Lila. I'm going to summon it and I'm going to attack. There's a chance it's a Raikou, which sucks, but I don't think I saw any Raikous in the last game. I did see merchants. I did see like a bunch of other like little dudes who they might want to set, like whatever, Plague Spreader Zombie or whatever. So I'm like, I'll just attack it. I'll get it out of the way. If it's a Raikou, fuck me, we probably lose. But if it's not a Raikou, which is more likely the case, then we're actually in a good spot. Because now I can set 2 back row, I can mill 3 cards. And while we didn't mill any Flamvells, it's going to be really difficult for the opponent to break through this Lila without their Heavy Storm or their Cold Wave here this turn. So they summon Sirocco, they attack. I have Deep Prison for it. They pass the turn. And we pick up Chaos Sorcerer, which is a great draw. We're able to just normal summon Sky Blaster, get 2 tokens, attack for 3,800. It's a lot of pressure. And then if they have Gore's Trag or whatever, we have Mirror Force. The worst part is if they have Trag and then they steal Lila. But that's something I'm willing to accept happening. It's just fine. Because if they do that, then okay, we kind of get fucked, but we get to drop Chaos Sorcerer, and potentially we mill a Flamvell here, so maybe we can mill a Magician and then make a Black Rose or something. We don't, but that's fine. Here we pick up Fire Dog, and I'm like, oh, that's just really good pressure. I'll just summon it, attack, and they're going to get 2 tokens, but our 2 tokens can run over those 2 tokens, and we can still get in 2,800 points of damage. Next turn, we're pretty likely to just kill the opponent. Just because we have Chaos Sorcerer plus Rekindling, and we milled another 3, and we did end up hitting the Magician. They go ahead and Debris Dragon Black Rose, but we have Rekindling Chaos Sorcerer, so it's going to be really hard for us to lose this game. They go ahead and banish Wind and Dark for Dark Smorg. They hit us for 2,700. Big damage, but again, whatever. It's really easy for us to just win from this point. We also picked up Brain Control, so we can just Rekindling. They chain Crow on the Fire Dog, but this is still fine because we can summon Necrogardener and Black Rose Nuke. This is a little bit of an interesting spot. I think they probably should have crowed the Flamvell Magician instead. That would have made it a little bit more awkward. We still would have won the game this turn because we have Chaos Sorcerer plus Brain Control, but it actually would have made it a little bit harder for us to win the game this turn in case we didn't have a non-tuner. Because a non-tuner here is much, much worse for them than if Fire Dog comes out. I would have to have specifically Flamvell Magician as opposed to like any number of non-tuners that this deck plays. Summon Chaos Sorcerer and attack, and that's going to be that. Pretty straightforward stuff. This Chaos Sorcerer is actually really good too, because even if they do have Gores or whatever, I have Necrogardener to protect it. I really like Necrogardener in this deck because if you mill it with Lila, it's another way to protect it. And then also if you set up a Stardust Dragon, Stardust Necro is actually really hard for a lot of decks to deal with. So I do like that. I do like that quite a bit. You guys kind of saw the potential of Sky Blaster there, the way it applies early pressure. It forces the opponent to have certain outs. It forces them to play the game because if they don't, they're just going to lose. Okay, next match. Next match. This is where the misplays really come in. You guys are going to be excited for this. So I played against J4 Rest. I don't know if this is J4 or if this is a J4 fan account, but I lose the die roll, which sucks. They start off with Rhoda for Armageddon Knight. They summon Armageddon Knight, and they send Plague. So what decks do this, right? What decks normally do this? There's usually like Diva Hero or Vayu Turbo do stuff like this. Normally Vayu Turbo is going to send Vayu, but if they don't send Vayu, then that means that their hand is full of Vayus. So that's what I'm assuming. It's Vayu Turbo and their hand is full of Vayus. Either that or it's Diva Hero and they've set Wind Blast with Malicious in hand. Either way, I think my best play here is because my hand is like full of normal summons. I actually fucking hate Summoner Monk, by the way. I think I might cut this card, but that's a story for another time. I summon Flamvell Magician and I go to Crash because this is just the best play into whatever it is they could have, basically. I do have Lila Honest, but that can help me break in the case that it is Wind Blast into Malicious. And then next turn they go for maybe like an 8-star. We can use Lila plus Honest to run over the 8-star. This way I just clear their monster out of the board, alleviate some of the pressure, and then we can pass the turn to the next turn. Unfortunately for us, that is not what they're playing at all. They just activate Plague, stack a card, they activate Future Fusion, and in real time, it took them a very long time. I'm not going to make you sit through this. It took them super long time to resolve this Future Fusion. And I was just like getting really impatient. They were like sending one Jinzo every 15 seconds. And I was like, dude, can you just hurry the fuck up? So they summoned the Jinzos, and that's why I said play here. Because he's just taking forever. And then once the Jinzos were summoned, he was thinking for like another minute and a half. And then he said he was lagging after I asked him to play at a more reasonable pace. And then it says, I said it doesn't appear to be lagging. He refreshed. He came back. He attacked. He attacked for 24. And then he attacks with limiter removal for the last one. So the opponent opened Future Fusion limiter removal. I mean, that hand's going to beat anything because if you don't out the Armageddon or the back row, or if the back row is real, they can just stack for Plague, Bryonic bounce anything, and they can go for Future Fusion limiter. And that's going to beat any deck pretty much because Jinzo's going to stop trap cards. So we just get turn one. Unfortunate, it's going to happen some percentage of the time. Game two, we do get to go first, which is really, really nice. Really, really nice. And our opening hand is decent. We have Raikou, we have Typhoon for Future Fusion, so our circumstances are pretty good. Opponent starts off with Armageddon Knight. They go ahead and send Malicious. So they do confirm that they are at least playing Malicious, which means this deck is full of fucking bricks. It's got triple Jinzo Returner, triple Jinzo, and then it's got double Malicious, and it's also got fucking Plague, Armageddon Knight. Like, it's just got a whole bunch of bricks. So they attack the Raikou. Raikou's going to pop the Armageddon Knight. We mill 3, and we do get 2 really nice mills. We hit Flamvell Magician and Plague Spreader Zombie, which is amazing. This turn, we pick up Gores, which is nice. That means we'll survive the OTK push when he inevitably goes for it. I summon Honest, and I Rekindling. Because he just passed and he didn't set any back row, I'm like, okay, there's a chance he has Gores. There's a chance he has Gores, for sure. So the best play is to summon 2 monsters, go for 2,500 damage, and then main phase 2 make a Colossal Fighter if they do have Gores, and if they don't have Gores, maybe make something like a Stardust Dragon. So I attack for 1,100, attack for 1,400. I'm not sure if this is the best play. They end up having Trag, which kind of sucks, because Trag is really, really, really good against us here. It stops the second attack, so it saves them life points, and then also it can steal our monster if we go for something too crazy. I make Colossal Fighter anyway, because they're going to draw up to 5 cards, and I don't really have a way to stop this Trag from attacking a Stardust. This is maybe a little bit of a tell that my back row isn't real, but I just have to go for it, because if they do just draw a card and swing the Trag into a Stardust, I'm fucking losing really, really badly. So I have to pass the turn. Here they go for Giant Trunade, so their hand is actually really fucking good. They had Armageddon Knight plus Trunade plus Tragodia. They do end up having drawn the Plague, which is one of the cards that I mentioned could be a brick, but it's actually not super bad here because they can Synchro now into an 8-star. They end up making Stardust first, which means that they have follow-up plays, which is really bad for me, even though I know that they do have follow-up plays because the Malicious is in the grave, etc. The Plague is also in the grave. They banish Malicious, they special Malicious, they summon Dark Arm Dragon, so my opponent opened really, really well. They opened Armageddon Knight, Giant Trunade, Tragodia, Dark Arm Dragon, Plague, so 5 fucking limited cards, or I guess Armageddon Knight's not limited, but 4 limited cards, which is fucking insane in a deck with at least 6 bricks in it, 7 bricks in it. They stack for Plague. They're able to make Thought Ruler Archfiend. They're going to activate Dark Dragon, and they attack with Stardust Dragon first. Now, I could have made a couple of different plays here. I could have summoned the Gores after the Thought Ruler attack. I could have summoned it in attack position, summoned the token in attack position to bluff Honest, since they've seen Honest in the graveyard. I could have done a lot of different things here. I didn't do any of the bluff plays because I didn't expect my opponent to be like that on top of the gameplay to expect Honest. I expected them to just be able to attack over my monsters. So I made the play that was just like, I'm just going to save myself the most life points, hopefully pick up like a Fire Dog or something, and then be able to Magical Stone and reversal the opponent somehow. That's just my game plan for this from here. And then they attack over Gores, they gain 2,700, they attack over the token with Dark Armed, and they set a back row. So I'm thinking this deck plays Jinzo, right? This deck plays a whole bunch of fucking dumb shit in your hand. What are the chances the back row is something real that's not Phoenix Wing Windblast? Plus, on top of that, what are the chances it's something real that they drew with this absolute nut draw? Like, this is a fucking nut draw, right? And you'll see our draw here is actually an insane draw. It's Phantom Sky Blaster. So we are able to Magical Stone, pitching the Magician and the Space Typhoon, targeting Rekindling, grab back that Rekindling. We are able to Rekindle, bring back double Magician and normal summon Phantom Sky Blaster, getting 2 tokens. So I'm actually fucking alive here. Like, I'm actually totally chilling here. But I Giga Choke this turn, and I don't fucking play around Book of Moon, which is so dumb. make a really, really bad play. Even if the back row isn't Book of Moon, this is a better way to attack because my Colossal Fighter is 2900. So what I should do here is I should attack Dark Arm Dragon with Colossal Fighter. I'm thinking if their back row is nothing, I can attack over Thought Ruler Archfiend. Dark End can attack over Stardust and then pop Dark Arm Dragon main phase 2. But if the back row is nothing, Dark End Dragon can run over Stardust and pop Thought Ruler Archfiend main phase 2 just the same. But if they have Book of Moon, which is a back row that they could play in a deck with Jinzo, then it's better to attack the Dark Arm Dragon with Colossal Fighter, because that way I clear the Dark Arm Dragon and their 2 monsters in play. Even though they can kill my Dark End and my token, they can't kill my Colossal, and I should end up winning this game because I have Plague next turn, and I can sort of maybe wait to put together some sort of Bryonic push, etc. And I'm commanding this board with Colossal Fighter if I just attack the Dark Arm Dragon. So I Giga Choke, I attack the Thought Ruler, and then they do end up having Book of Moon, and then I lose, which sucks. But you guys see the power. I guess the whole point of this replay is I wanted to showcase exactly why Phantom Skyblaster is so good. You can be like getting fucked, and then out of nowhere you can just rekindling Phantom Skyblaster and then come back into a game that you would have lost. And honestly, we probably should have won this game. I just played it like a fucking idiot and didn't attack Dark Arm Dragon. And sometimes you make that mistake. That's just how it goes. This is, again, my second game with this deck, or with this list. It's not my second game with this deck, but it's my second game with this list. So I'm not really super practiced on this style of deck. And if I had just taken a moment to think, I was also a little bit tilted because my opponent was taking fucking forever this entire game. So, yeah, that's something I got to work on as a player for sure. For sure. But yeah, this happens. I say GG's to my opponent, and then they leave. They don't say GG's back, which is always shitty. But, you know, you do what you can. You do what you can. Next match. And this is the one I've probably clickbaited. This is me destroying Salty Lightsworn NOOB or whatever the fuck. Alright, we're going to fast forward. I win the die roll, which is always great. I go ahead and draw into a really, really good starting hand. I've got one of my millers, and then I've got 2 different ways to protect it. I've got a back row, and I've got Honest. And then on top of that, I have Rekindling Magical Stone. So I just have an amazing hand. Like, this is like pretty much the dream hand. The only thing that you could change is like change Lumina into Lila, basically. I summon Lumina, I set Dimensional Prison, and Lumina's even not that bad because if I mill a Lila, I can bring it back. I mill 3, I mill nothing, but that's fine. This Lumina's going to stick around at least 1 turn, so we'll get another mill. They charge, they mill Plague, they grab their own Lumina. That I didn't really fully understand, but they're summoning Aaron, and I actually thought here about using this D-Prison for a little while, because if I let this run over my Lumina, that means I can resolve my Fire Dog on a monster if they don't have Honest. And there's a good chance they don't have Honest. But then I was thinking, sometimes these decks play Mirror Force, sometimes they play other ways to interact. I don't really want to get too greedy and like bank this whole game on resolving this Fire Dog when I can just stick the Lumina around a couple more turns and probably win either way. I did draw the Book of Moon, so it would have been nice, but it's fine. I think I made the safer play, and that's totally chill too. I attack for 1,000, opponent takes 1,000. I set the Book of Moon just to have those 2 layers of defense for my miller. I mill 3 cards and pass the turn, and now I've actually found Lila, which is really good. So next turn I can pitch Fire Dog, or I can pitch whatever I draw, bring back the Lila, pop their back row, and then maybe make some sort of OTK push if I have access to some Flamvells, which I end up drawing. I do draw a Flamvell Magician, which is really good. I'm able to pitch that Magician, bring out the Lila pop the back row. They try to chain Beckoning Light, but they can't actually chain Beckoning Light here because they only have 1 light in the graveyard. Not only that, but this is actually like a pretty bad for them to chain. As you can see here, they start to discard their hand, and I'm like, no, you can't. Discarding Tragodia is like really bad. I don't know why you would want to discard Trag here. Trag is fucking insane on this board. So I don't really understand why they wanted to chain this, but you'll see later on why they wanted to chain it, because they're, let's just say, not the most experienced player. I bring back Flamvell Magician, and I'm assuming at this point they just like had a brain lapse, right? Like I always give my opponent some level of respect, although at this point I probably shouldn't. I should probably just make a Stardust here knowing that that's a Raikou. I should probably do that, but I get a little greedy. I make Avenging Knight, and then I summon Flamvell Fire Dog. So I expect them to pop the Fire Dog because the Fire Dog is going to get its effect, right? And I'm going to be able to get a Flamvell Magician, which is amazing, right? And then I have Avenging Knight Honest, which is really, really good, especially against something like, you know, if they drop that Trag, right? I can run it over with Avenging Knight Honest and pierce it for a lot of damage. So I attack the set monster. They end up popping the Avenging Knight, which I actually think is a An interesting play, but I guess it makes sense. They're just saving themselves damage. Maybe they're scared of Honest. We haven't revealed it so far, but maybe they're thinking about it because it's in their own deck. I don't fucking know. We get to activate Flamvell Fire Dog. We bring out Flamvell Magician. And then I attack with Magician first because I'm like, if they have Trag, they're going to drop it on the Lumina. So I should attack with Flamvell Magician first. Then they drop Gores, and I'm like, what the fuck? They didn't even have 4 lights total to activate this Beckoning Light. What were they thinking? I don't understand. It didn't make any sense to me at all. So I was like, I don't fully understand what's going through the opponent's head at this point. I was really confused to see Gores here. I was just like, even if they could have resolved Beckoning Light with only 1 light in graveyard, they had 2 or less lights in hand, which means that they wouldn't have been able to add back the full amount, which means can't use Beckoning Light on every front. Doesn't make any fucking sense. Here, I just leave the Lumina in play, I synchro into Colossal Fighter, and I just pass the turn. I'm just like, alright, I know what kind of player my opponent is. End phase, I mill 3, and I do have Rekindling in the graveyard, so next turn I can go for some sort of magical stone shit. They summon Lumina, they pitch Wolf, they bring out Wolf. They're doing this because they're trying to set up for a Brownic play. They stack for Plague, and then I book Wolf on the summon of Plague. The reason I book Wolf and not Plague is because if they synchro with Plague, it'll get banished and it'll deny them that Brownic play. And they will also have to synchro with their Lumina, which means they're not milling the card they stacked, which means they're draw locked. So either way, they're either not synchroing and having a really weak board, or they are synchroing and they're losing the Plague and their ability to mill the draw that they draw lock themselves. So I book the Wolf here instead of like booking the Plague or whatever. It's all the same. I'm also going to let this Lumina die because I do just want a Magical Stone and then Rekindling next turn and take back the position. They synchro into Catastor, they switch their Gores and their token to defense, they attack the Lumina, they pop it, and then they pass the turn. We draw Card Trooper. Doesn't matter, we're just going to pitch them both to Magical Stone. Get back Rekindling, activate it, special summon out Fire Dog, Magician, and then we are going to make Stardust main phase 1. The reason we do this is because Stardust is going to attack over the... Well, we're going to make Stardust regardless, right? Stardust is going to attack over the 1400 token in case they have Honest somewhere down the road. And then Colossal Fighter is going to attack over Gores so we don't lose our Stardust. And then the Magician is going to attack over the Wolf. End phase will lose the Magician. Catastor doesn't threaten either of our cards. And we know that they have Trag plus 1 unknown in their hand and they can't really come back from this. So we're just going to be able to take over the game. Pretty easy dibs. Alright, next match. You guys saw the power of Magical Stone there. You guys saw the power. Now this game there's some salt. Just warning, there's some salt this game. Alright, there's a little bit of salt. We have Magical Stone, and we have Lila Honest, so pretty good hand. Pretty good hand, that's just what the deck does. Here they try to charge, but I tell them they have to draw for turn. And now I fully know what type of player we're playing against. They mill 3, they grab Lumina, they go ahead and pass. And I'm like, alright, Mr. Gores, alright, we know what kind of hand you have. If you're playing Lightsworns and you get to go first, you should always take your opportunity to summon your millers. You should always take that opportunity. Your deck works because you get mills. If you aren't getting those mills, your deck is just not functioning. And you're just passing. You're just giving me free time to do whatever it is I want to do. You give me free time to commit my trap cards that stop your millers. So like always first turn. Even if you have fucking Gores, just summon your Lumina and bring out your Jane and mill 5. That's what your deck needs to do to win. Like you legit should not play this passively with Lightsworn. Charge pass is just like embarrassingly bad. Like sure, maybe you're scared of Fire Dog. I get that. Maybe you're scared of that shit, but this is just not right. Maybe just don't charge for Lumina then. Charge for Raikou or something. End phase, I'm going to mill 3. And the draw was actually bottomless, which is a great draw. It means we have 2 layers of defense for the Lila. Yet again, you guys are seeing a fucking theme here. Summon Lila, have Honest, have a back row. Your opponent can't break it. You mill 6 cards, you Rekindling, the game ends. That's just how it goes. That's how this deck works. It's really linear. It's really simple. It's not that complicated. That's just how you play it. It's fun. It's a good time because milling cards is fun and Lila is fun and Flamvells are fun, but there's not much to it. Let's be real. Here I just summon the Thunder King because I'm like, fuck it, we ball. If that's like a Plague or something, I just want to run it over. They pop the Thunder King, they get a mill 3, and they mill a Wolf, and I'm like, fuck me. So I'm probably losing this game straight up. Even though we did mill Rekindling and we have Magical Stone for it, we're probably just losing. They just have too many cards, and we don't really have the resources to really out this situation. I have to just hope they fuck up, basically. That's pretty much what I have to hope for. End phase, I mill 3. I do hit a Magician and a Fire Dog, so we have a shot at a pretty good Magical Stone for Rekindling. This turn they summon Lumina, they pitch Plague, they bring out the Jane, and instead of going for Bryonic, like they probably should have, or Catastor, they just attack Jane into Lila, which doesn't make any fucking sense, because they know about Honest. I'm pretty sure they saw Honest last game. Yeah, I think they saw Honest last game because I pitched it to a Magical Stone. So they know about Honest, so this is just a bad play. Like, this is just outright a fucking terrible play. They should have made Catastor, they should have done literally anything but this. They attack, we use our Honest, they lose their Jane, they mill in Necro Gardener, which fucking sucks for us, because now we have to play through fucking Necro, Plague, potential for a reanimation spell on JD, that kind of thing. We pick up Lumina, which isn't great. We go for Magical Stone, pitching our 2 cards, and then we target Rekindling. And I fucking waited here, because I'm like, if you have DD Crow, this is where you use it, right? You DD Crow the Rekindling, and I just fucking lose, right? But the opponent lets this resolve after I waited. And I'm like, all right, I activate Rekindling. And now they chain DD Crow on my Fire Dog, and I'm just like, holy shit, we're gonna win a game that we have no business winning. This is why Magical Stone is bad, right? Because your opponent just DD Crows the Rekindling, and you just fucking lose. Like, that's it. It's game over. You go -2 into a DD Crow, and the game's over. But if they don't know that, for whatever reason, then obviously you're gonna have an easier time. They accidentally reveal Giant Trunade, which doesn't make any fucking sense. I go ahead and Synchro into Colossal to play around Honest. I summon Lumina, and I Synchro into Black Rose. Here I attack the Lumina. They use Necro Gardener, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Maybe they're hoping to top deck Celestia, something like that, and they figure it's better to just use it on the bigger monster. And then I attack Lumina with Black Rose. Turns out they don't have Honest. So now I'm like, all right, if they have Celestia, we lose. We know they have Plague, which makes Bryonic, which kills us. Blah, 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 blah. We pass the turn. The opponent just switches the Wolf and passes. So they completely forget about their Plague. They've didn't DD Crow the right card. They've played this game like an absolute noob. And like, don't get me wrong. A lot of people are learning the format. A lot of people are newer players, whatever. But the only reason I'm being so hard on this guy, you'll see. You'll see why I'm going to be hard on this guy. You'll see why. On our turn, we pick up Raikou, and I'm like, hell yeah. We attack with the Colossal Fighter. I know they have Gores, but Gores doesn't out Colossal Fighter Raikou. It just doesn't. Like, that's just the way it works. They drop the Gores. They take 2,900. They drop the 2,000. We set the Raikou, and then we pass. So next turn, we can Raikou pop the token if they just switch it to defense or whatever. Here, they attack the Colossal Fighter with the token. I'm like, bro, just read the fucking cards in play. Like, legit, just read this. This is when it's destroyed by battle. You can target one warrior monster in either graveyard special summon. He's a warrior monster. He just comes back. Like, what? I don't understand. Just read the cards in play. Attacks the Black Rose. And then my opponent says, your deck is actual trash and leaves the duel. Bruh. Bruh, you had Solar Recharge Aaron. Just activate the card. Just fucking summon Aaron. Make Bryonic. Don't. What? Bruh. Don't talk shit when you are literally playing the game like you don't. I'm not gonna say it. I'm not gonna say it, but salty Lightsworn noob, corrupted EXE, do yourself a favor. Don't be a fucking dickhead when you're terrible. I think that's it. And honestly, if you're good, don't be a dickhead either. I'm being a dick right now, but that's because it's funny and it's for content. But you guys get the idea. Don't be like, your deck is actual trash when your plays were so... I've never seen anyone play this badly in my life. Don't talk shit when you're obviously a very, very inexperienced player. That's just how it goes. Hopefully these replays showcase this deck a little bit. Hopefully you guys got some laughs out of these matches. It's nothing serious. Corrupted EXE. You know, like, I'm not like mad at you or anything. I understand you're probably just salty because when you play this poorly, it's hard not to be salty. In any case, like, subscribe. See you guys in the next vid. Peace.